Welcome to Small Town Big Life podcast, coming to you from the bait shop behind Grace Fellowship Church in Avis. Today we have Jeff Wheeler and Scott Horton with us, and we're going to talk about addiction, something that has touched a lot of people's lives. I know 3 of us at the table have been through it. I don't think Jackie has ever been.
No.
Just maybe the cooking channel. That's probably the only thing you're addicted to.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So Jackie will be the regular person voice in the conversation. And so, anyway, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we talked about this. Well, Jeff and I talk about this all the time, and you and I talked about it when we first met. And we've never done a podcast on it because most podcasts we do are intentionally lighthearted, movies and music and stuff like that. But you know what? It was a great idea because this is something I think that touches more people than not. Because if someone's not an addict, at least they know someone in their family.
Oh, yeah.
Or a friend or something. They've been touched by it. So I forget which one you brought up. I knew me and Jeff talked about it. It was you, Scott, wasn't it?
Brought up the
doing a podcast. Yeah. So I'll let you open up then. Good. What's on your mind, buddy? We have a list too. We have a whole list that we won't get to all these, but if there's something on there that
one thing the church, when I got clean, I didn't want nothing to do with God. I kept seeing it in the readings in the rooms and stuff. God. I'm like, no, not him. He doesn't like me very much.
Yeah.
And it didn't take me long to figure out that Jesus loves me more than I could ever love myself. You know? But it took working some steps to get to that point.
Yeah.
And then even later on, people in church were asking me, why do you still got to go to that program? And I'm like, I can't talk about everything with you guys without some kind of judgment. And I said, I can go in the rooms and everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's why, me and Jeff, we still go in the rooms. And plus, we're showing people what Jesus is like in the rooms, and that's attractive.
Yeah.
And some people do come this way,
Well, faith-based recovery has a higher success rate than secular.
Yes.
Because it addresses the whole person, not just the actual addiction.
Yeah.
So,
you made a point about changing behaviors in the 12-step programs we're changing the heart here.
Right.
And but first, sometimes you have to change some behaviors before you can get to that point.
Sure. Yeah, and I noticed that I never put down anyone's path because different paths have worked for different people. There are some people that they didn't get to the God part until the end of the other stuff first, and then there's some people that started out with God, and I look at it like when God gets in the mix somewhere in there, you'll be fine. But I've told people right up front, I can tell when they don't want to hear, because I get people since I'm a pastor. People come to me, I got a problem, I got a drug problem, I want help, and I'm like, they've never been to church a day in their life, and I know they don't believe in God, but I tell them, I know that. We'll get to that in a minute, so let's talk about anyway. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, everybody's different, and if that was your path to success, then good, because you ended up with God, right?
Yeah, well, I started out with God.
Yeah.
I was 29 years old when I accepted Christ, and I never picked up the drugs until I was 40. And just some stuff happened in my life in between, and this has been an up and down ride for me. Right. My mom died in 2016.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't talk about God.
Oh wow.
And
did she believe or no?
Well, she said she believed in God, but she didn't want to talk about it.
Okay.
And and she knew I was like this born-again believer guy.
Sure.
And so she didn't want to have those conversations with me. When she died, I was really upside down. I'm like, if God don't want her, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
That's just where I was. And,
right.
And I kind of spiraled for a while, spiritually speaking, and then I wound up using again.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, everything was my higher power except Jesus.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
You know, the universe and all this other stuff, and
Yeah.
and you know, the people in the rooms and stuff like that was my higher power. But you know, I reached a point where it wasn't working for me. You know, just spiritually, I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
And then I watched a lot of podcasts, and I watched Wesley Huff a lot. And I had just started watching. Do you know who he is?
I do. I don't know his material that well, but I've seen him a few times for people sending me like clips and stuff.
Yeah, he's a Christian
Apologist. Yeah.
And I watched him, and I'm like, yes. And you know, I just felt like God was calling me through that.
Right.
And then God, and I was like, okay, where do I go? Where do I go to church? You know, and I actually contacted Pastor Grant, who used to be the pastor here.
Okay.
And he says, well, of course, I'm going to tell you my church is the best, but he says, I want you to go where you feel led.
Sure. Yeah.
And I felt led to be here.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people in this church that helped me in my early recovery back in 2010.
Right.
And yeah.
So it's familiar turf. What say you, Jeff? You got.
Well, mine's interesting actually because you know, I was raised Catholic. I went to 12 years of Catholic school, so I always had some identity with God.
Right.
And I'm going to say it simply, but that was the thing that also kept me from getting clean. You know, because, you know, every time I was in a rehab or trying to get some help, it seemed like they kept coming at me with God. Well, addicted brain says, yeah, he ain't never done nothing for me, so what do I want to have to do with that? That's the belief sense, you know, which is nonsense. I deal with it every day.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is,
yeah, because you're a counselor. This is what you do. You're a psychologist or something. You're an egghead. You're right.
I'm 100% egghead.
You're a degreed egghead, and you have a job saving people that used to be right.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done this with me, helping someone. I forgot your official title. I know it's not egghead.
We'll go with egghead.
Yeah.
No,
All right.
Yeah.
clinical director, but I counsel counselors.
Right. Okay, I got you.
But what it comes down to is when it got to the worst, when I was absolutely done, the first place I ran to it was a church. And I was down in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. And I went from a Catholic upbringing, and the first church I walked into was an independent Baptist church in Charleston, South Carolina. So you know things down south are a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And it was a very astute church. You know, everything was well in order. Bible preaching, KJV only. I didn't have any background. I had never heard the gospel. I had spent 12 years in Catholic school. I didn't know what the gospel was, but I knew when I heard it, I associated everything with Catholicism.
All right.
I went to church high.
Yeah.
And call it what it was, you know, and it's part of testimony.
That happens
now.
with a lot of people. It's a reality, but.
And the pastor of that church was an evangelist for 25 years, and he sat with me, and he discipled me, and he was the one person that I could call when I was in the last rehab center I was in. No family. He picked up the phone every time I called, and he guided me. And when I got out, he continued to guide me, and he guided me through Scripture. And so I basically had people guide me in the rooms. I had people guide me in my faith walk because the truth is they can intersect.
Yeah. Yes.
But a lot of times they don't. And like we even have to be wary about who we interact with because not everybody's on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Threefold disorder: physical, mental, and spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
If the spiritual isn't ever overcome, the physical and mental will never balance itself out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be an up and down. I have found as I've progressed in my recovery that the closer I get into my relationship with the Lord, the easier recovery gets. That's a blip on the radar.
Right.
And the people that I know in the rooms that have a relationship with the Jehovah God are always in much better order, which tells me something, you know. So it does become a testimony to what the Lord can do in someone's life. But I didn't have to be clean to come to God. That was the best part. Now, I fought with it. back and forth. Yeah, I've done the same things. I'm going to read a Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to get involved in Buddhism. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. And the only thing that's ever brought me serenity and calmness was relationship with the Lord. I'm talking about personal relationship, not just my church relationship. No, me and Scripture, me and my prayer life, and staying consistent in it long term, because my head's messed up. It's been messed up for a long time, but every human's head's messed up. I don't care, drug addict or not. The only thing that can calm it down is me having that conversation with God, going, all right, which one am I listening to? Because I don't know about y'all. I got like 7 of them up here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And sometimes I'm listening to that one that says, you're useless, you're worthless, you're never going to amount to anything. That's always been there, but I thought that was just exclusive to people with addiction. It's not. It's a human problem.
No, it sure is. It's across the board.
And what I found out was the amount of people that were witnessing to me. Wow, was at the peak of addiction? I had no clue they were even witnessing to me. Mm-hmm. I had no clue they were bringing the Lord right to me. And so hindsight, going back, going, oh man, this person tried, this person tried, this person tried. I'm like, why are all these people trying? And it just hit me. God might actually like you.
Right.
He loves you, and he keeps sending ships out to bail you out. And you keep going, nah, I'm good.
Keep sending different people to you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, putting things in your path.
And then what happens is, and we always relate this back to recovery, is life starts happening. We assume that, oh man, I stopped using. Everything's going to be great now. It's going to be rainbows and butterflies and sunshines and roses and
unicorns.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't get ready for real life, and then real life starts happening. You're like, oh, that's right. It's not going to be a walk in the park.
Nah,
right.
And like addiction for me isolated me. I don't want to be around people. I don't like people.
Yeah.
And now for a living, that's what I do is people.
Right. Me too.
Yeah. And when God calls you to do something, you're just like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
I was like that too. I was in a. I was an alcoholic. I mean, I did different drugs, but alcohol was my drug of choice. But it was weird for me because I was in music. We did 3 albums and we played and a lot. And my job was to be around people a lot. And so the only place I felt safe was on stage. Like I didn't like going out into crowds and talking with people. And I did, but I didn't like it. And I didn't like people coming in the dressing room, and unless it was for all the wrong reasons, and I didn't, and the waitress with a stack of drinks but I mean, and then I didn't go to parties and stuff. My band's like, well, we should go out and promote the band and stuff. I went to bars, but I hung out in dives, like with a pool table. And pretzels with a football game on, and like 5 or 6 guys there that are still wearing their blue collar clothes. Those are the bars I went to. I didn't go to I was not like in the party scene, but people would invite me. I'm like, yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. That being said, if you just by the law of averages, I went to a ton because there was some after show parties and all that stuff. But I didn't like. It's not that I didn't like people. I just like quiet, left alone, and that's how I would drink. And I would drink alone all the time. I would drink at band. It was just everywhere. So it was like some people go get a Pepsi, I go get a 5th of whiskey, and or beer or whatever. And I was the same way. And the only place I could be me was when I was on the stage, because nobody could tell me to be quiet. I was in charge. I had boundaries, like in my own sandbox. Nobody came on the stage. I could deal with anybody I wanted, but I was the top guy in the room, and that made me comfortable. And when it's over, I'm like, I got paid and I'm gone. Mm-hmm. But I like the people. I just didn't want to be in with the people, and I didn't want to have small talk. I despise small talk. I mean, I'm not saying I do now, but then I'm like, what is there to talk about? Mm-hmm. And I mean, I was a whole different person, man. And but I don't know. So I totally get that. What you mean?
The whole term addiction is funny.
It comes from it's a Latin word that the Romans used. Addict means slave. And that says a lot.
It says a ton. But we immediately think addict and we go towards chemical dependency. And I'm like, wrong. Wrong. Let's have a really look at this. All right.
Yeah.
Because who's not?
Who's not what?
Who's not an addict?
Everyone is compelled by something.
Anything that hinders my relationship in a repetitive pattern from my relationship with God.
Pornhub.
Yeah.
Yeah, porn's a big one. Porn is more. I don't want to. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, go ahead.
Food.
Food.
I mean, food is a
Food,
drug by, if it's scientific standard, food's a drug. I'm a lot happier when I got a cheesesteak sitting in front of me than when I'm hungry.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are so many things out there that can hinder us in our growth.
It becomes an idol if it stands between you and God. And another sign is, if anything you do, you have to keep secret. There's a pretty good sign you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have to keep it from everyone you know, it's like your spouse and the people close. So, there's something in your brain. You should go, I mean, that's usually a red flag right there.
How many people smoke cigarettes? That's.
I know, and that kills me because I struggled with that. I vape to get off on tobacco, but what's weird is I'm going to say the opposite of what you probably think I'm going to say. I know a lot of people smoke, and I don't look down on them people ask me, will you go to hell for smoking? And I say, no, you may smell like you've been there, but I don't think you're going to go there. I don't think you're gonna, smoking was a social, culturally acceptable thing, and then we find out, it's bad for us after you do it for 20 years. I'm talking about decades ago. And, yeah, you shouldn't do it, but I shouldn't drink, red pop with dye in it. And it's not something you're intentionally changing your mindset for. And then I hear other people hard-nosed against it. They come up against me in that conversation and say, your body's a temple of God, and your body's I go, I know that. They burned incense in the temple, so go ahead. And anyway, I say, no, I don't say that. That would be sarcastic. I don't say that. But I say, I think there's certain things you take to extreme and you don't. When you openly and willfully pervert and destroy your body, a guy that a World War II vet in a wheelchair that's smoking a cigarette while he watches, a baseball game, I don't look at him as someone actively destroying the temple of God. I mean, there's a way you use common sense when you address things. I think quitting smoking is always a positive thing to do, but I don't put that in the same category as some, like you said, things that we think are mild, like food. Food can become a horrible, terrible, destructive addiction. Porn can, because it has effects on the brain that you don't see like you do with drugs, and so people are walking around with their brain literally breaking down, and other people can't see that.
Right.
So we can see the effects of food often, and obviously the body shows it, but if you don't exercise a lot, but porn, you can't see the results of a lot, and it's like you said, everything's an addiction. But there's a lot of things are okay if you police. It's like anything in moderation. I don't mean anything. I don't mean drugs and all that. It's like to your point, to stop something from taking over.
Right.
And what's funny is things come subtly and then jump in.
Yeah.
Big time. Like, guitars or something like that. I'm sorry, that was taking a shot at you.
He was, because he was just in my office looking at my guitars.
I know.
What it did was it made me feel better about my hockey card collection, so it was cool.
I've made money owning guitars, though, so I could argue that.
Ham radio is an addiction for me.
See, these are hobbies. It's not it's not an addiction. It's a hobby.
But
you can't say smoking meth. Are you an addict? No, it's just a hobby. I got this on the north end, and I'm going to try some south end stuff next week and see. Yeah, great drug to do if you want to walk to Florida.
True story.
Stupid.
True story. I had a detox counselor. He checked me and he's doing blood levels, and he looks at me and he goes, "Good God." And I said, "What do you think? This is a hobby?"
Exactly.
Like, this is what I do for a living, bud.
Right?
I'm good at this.
Yeah.
So you were raised Catholic. Did you ever go to confession and then hear the priest go, "Wow"?
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Drop
kidding.
his Bible.
Yeah.
So I probably have had a couple of those, but I look back at it I learned to indulge in the sacrament very young. You know, and for me and from a lot of other people I know, there's a lot of truth in that. You know, first and foremost, I'm a left-handed person. I write right-handed, but everything I do is left-handed outside of that.
Right.
And there was an outward view towards being left-handed in the Catholic Church, you know, 70s, 80s, and so forth. So I had a belief system, you know, long before addiction that God already hated me. You know, I was one of the ones
Right.
going to be cast out. So I'm going to find the people who are going to that other place, and we're going to have a good time until we go there.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a sincere belief system. I went that route. And basically what I did was I made a commitment to the other side. And, you know, I did still have this moral code. I mean, you know, there is a high moral code to Catholicism, but it's rooted in ritualism. And
Don't get me started.
well, yeah, no, we're not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to get you started.
it.
But what I'm telling you is did set a great foundation for me long term.
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, I didn't know any different. My assumption was, because that's where I'd always been, that the Lord appeared the same in all those places. I wasn't. I was always told, oh, well, if you're not that and you're this, if you're a Protestant of some kind, you're wrong. Stay away from those people. I didn't know until I've got this independent Baptist evangelist coming to my house every day, giving me the gospel, and I'm looking at him. How did I spend 12 years
Right.
in Catholic school, and you're telling me things I've never heard out of that thing?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, there's some intent. There's some explicit intent. And ultimately, I can remember, and I tell people this all the time, and I've had people look at me crazy. I was stoned when I accepted Christ.
Yeah.
I absolutely stoned when I accepted Christ. And it wasn't that I wanted to be.
Most people got stoned after accepting Christ. Ba-doom-boom.
Wow.
That was really.
And some people are like, did you truly do it? And I was like, I know what happened where I was sitting that day. I know what happened. I can tell you where I was sitting and say the
I
day.
hope nobody makes it. Please have us go light on me. I mean, it's not. It's true. I mean, they did stone the
Yes.
Christians. I probably shouldn't have made a joke out of it, but I got this is a heavy subject.
But
I had
no,
pardon the
it's
pun,
not.
but I mean, I wanted to
And I remember hearing, you know, that pastor looking at me going, it's coming now, bud. And I'm like, what? He goes, like, he can't have you, but he's going to ruin this testimony. He's coming for you. And he was not lying.
Who, the adversaries? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the next couple of weeks of life were heinous. But there was a living proof in it that God will where I can't, period. And that was the foundation that set up all recovery. Now, do I choose to get my recovery needs met at another place other than church? Of course. Why? I like being around my people. You know, I like to be able to say, hey, you ever hidden out in a closet because you thought people were coming to get you? And they go, uh-huh. Man, I'm not saying hanging out with my church friends going, hey, you ever hid in a closet?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? But, and then there's places here where I'm not sitting around going there and going, you know what? Oh, y'all need Jesus. That's your problem. But on an individual level, I can take someone outside and say, you ever think about this?
I used to do that too when I drank. Because we'd play. Because I went to Sunday school as a kid and all that, and I mean I've always been a believer, and it was weird being in rock and roll. We were a heavy band because we'd come across bands with like satanic names or something, and I'm like, they ain't playing with us. They want to open for us. I'm like, they're not. And I'd be drinking whiskey and cussing and stuff, and they're like, Drew, look at you. I go, I'm not out bashing, bad mouthing God and Jesus and all that. I go, you need some church, man. And I go, you need some church. And I was always like that. And they thought, you know, you're a walking contradiction. They used to, but my friends close to me didn't think that. They knew what my beliefs were. And I'm like, I'm not getting in. And one of my buddies who got saved and clean and off crack and all this stuff, he was in a band. He wanted me to join his band when I left mine. They were called Wicked Angel. And so we had this, you know, we met and we started working on songs. I said, first of all, I ain't going to be in no band called Wicked Angel. I go, we're going to change the name. He goes, well, if you think about it, Drew, I go, I don't want to hear any of your twisted theology. I go, I'm not going to be in a band called that. And he goes, all right, that's fine. We'll change the name. I said, okay, cool. So, I mean, it's weird because I was a walking contract. Because you said I have codes. I have moral codes.
Yeah.
It's funny because we're at the bottom of the barrel. We got our own code system.
we do.
That's right.
I ain't going to cross that line. Jackie, you haven't said much. I just got to be...
No, I'm just going off of what I know from, friends and family who have been through addiction and things like that. And just listening to you, I totally get that there's certain people you can't say those things to.
Oh, no.
Right.
And, people who were high at events and I never knew that they were. And they come back later and ask me what happened because they have no idea. Like high school graduation. My buddy was stoned out of his mind. The whole graduation, has no idea what we did. So it's like, oh, well, let me fill in the gaps for you.
And I got my buddy and I, Dwight. He's no longer with us, but when we did I used to work in this addiction recovery stuff, and we did our testimony. While we're talking, you're talking about being around your people. We'd start laughing during stories, and I stopped in the middle. I looked at the camera. I said, "Hey, I just want everybody to know, like young people, kids, when we laugh, we're not laughing because we're going, oh, wasn't that so hysterical that we did these things? If you go back to the root of any joke, what the funny part of it is it's funny that I ever thought I could step away from God and control things on my own.
Right.
The level of stupidity to wander off of the farm, so to speak, wander out of God's care, God's relationship, God's supervision. The stupidity of doing that is the part that's funny. The actual actions, the things I did, they're not funny. I mean, but when I told, because Dwight and I were telling stories, and then we would laugh. And I go, it's kind of complicated because you think, oh, we're laughing at this thing I did. It was incredibly stupid. That sounds like fun. Let's get high and do funny, goofy things. And I'm like, if that's the point you're taking away, that's the wrong point.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're laughing at our own stupidity. And I'd much rather be talking about something I did that I'm really proud of. Nobody ever does a shot and then immediately does something they're proud of right after it. No, so... So go ahead, Scott. We've been talking. You haven't got to go much.
I just wanted to interject on that. You were talking about an active addiction and still being a Christian.
Yeah.
And I remember hanging out with a prostitute, and we prayed and we talked about Jesus. It was like, and we're partying. It was like really mind blowing because
it's real. It comes up all the time.
But we both were at least professed to be Christians, and we were both stuck in this spot.
Dude, I don't listen. I talk about, you've heard me say this in church. It's a joke. It's an anecdote, but it's true. Where this non-Christian, this atheist, and this Christian are talking, and he says, if God is real, you say he's everywhere. Is he everywhere? Yeah, he is. He said he's everywhere. So he's in brothels and casinos and crack houses. Is God in all those places?
He sure is.
He sure is, yeah. And he said, well, if he's an all-holy God, how can he be in those places? And the other guy says, the manure is affected by the sunlight. The sunlight is not affected by the manure. And I thought, boy, that is so spot on, because it's like what you just said. And me too. And I'm sure with you too. And even though you're not an addict, you probably be in circumstances that weren't exactly Christian,
right?
And then it comes up.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth shows up to all the parties it wasn't invited to.
Oh yeah.
And for me, that's a comforting thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the biggest things that God provides us in the recovery process is ultimately a family. Because many of us who struggle with addiction from a chemical dependency form, we come from some interesting backgrounds, to say the least, and we've been through some things that most human beings don't go through,
right?
Or have a belief system towards things that we've been through that causes inner turmoil. And being around a community of people that will accept you and keep you from the isolation, because, I mean, you even talked about it. I'm around 100 people, but I'm alone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Our exact nature is connectivity. Like, we should be connected and bonded to one another, and that is ultimately...
We're relational beings.
Yeah.
We're created to be relational.
If you can't be in a place where you feel 100% accepted, why would you want to be there?
Right.
But we always want 100%, full well knowing that we're around non-perfect beings all the time.
Well, yeah, Jesus hung out with the kind of people we would avoid.
Yeah, that's what
I mean, so I didn't make that saying up. I'm sure you've all seen it on a meme somewhere.
Right.
But it's truth, man.
Well, I was one of the people your mom warned you about. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
I know I left people's houses, and their
But
mom
that makes
said to
you
them, "Stay away
a
from them."
better
That's right.
Christian when you've been to the dark side. I mean, you know how to tell people, hey, don't go over there. I know what's over there. Okay, I've been there. I had a tree house over there, for crying out loud. So you do that with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you use your experience to help others, right? Because that's the idea, isn't it?
I lived in hell on earth.
Yeah.
You know,
What were you addicted to? What was your drug of choice?
crack cocaine.
Okay.
Yeah. And I literally lived in hell for 10 years. And, I said I was talking a while back, I was never a willing participant. I was always trying to get away from it. I knew a lot of people that they were there and they wanted to be there. I never wanted to be there. Like I said, I accepted Christ at 29 years old, and I just kind of faltered, got away from the church, and then did a little drinking here and there. And one night I got plastered. Woke up with a crack pipe in my mouth, wide awake. Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I said after that night, I'm never going to do that again. But wouldn't you know, I had that monkey on my back. And,
Yeah, you're like, well, it's just like anything. When you're a kid, you try something, you go, I wish I could do this all the time. When you're a grown up, you go, hey, you know what? I can. I can do this whenever I want. I got a job. I got money. I got a car. I can go here. What was your drug of choice?
Opiates.
Just
Mainly
Percocets and all that kind of stuff?
All right. Well, yeah, Oxycontin.
Yeah.
And alcohol. There was always a bottle available. It like skipped a generation in my household or something because my parents were never big on it. And I'm from old school Irish Catholic family.
Yeah.
But there was always a bottle in the house, which was, eventually drank and filled with sweet tea, and the family never knew.
Never knew.
Right.
But, and then I had all the friends too. So it started at the booze, and then once everything else got introduced, I set things aside, and I had some events in my life that invited, opiates into my life. Some injuries with sports.
Yeah.
And they didn't educate you on what you were putting in your body. Then they just said, here, that'll make the pain go away.
Right.
Yeah.
And at 17 years old, I got my skull fractured in a soccer game, and I got my first opiate. And I remember putting that thing in my body, going, "Oh, buddy, I'm in trouble."
Yeah. Okay. So the paths to addiction are like, that's one of them, and then another one is some like in nursing homes or something, whether it's pain management that turns into an addiction. Aside from those, when I counsel people, I tell them no victim language.
Right.
We're not gonna. The last person I talked to, I said, don't tell me this happened to me and this happened to me, and that's why I do drugs, because if everyone got high because life was hard, the whole world would be nothing but addicts. Mm-hmm. So we work with accountability. We don't teach the disease model. We're not pathologists, and we're not. No. What's that word? Anyway, we don't use the disease model. If it's a disease, it's the only one everybody's lining up to get every week, and it's people line up at the liquor store to get. You don't see people lining up to get cancer and polio, and It's not a disease. That's crap, and I would never teach that. So the state wouldn't give me any money because I won't teach. Because when you teach the disease model, you enable people. Right. What happens is they're like. They go out and they justify doing it. I can't help it. I just can't help it. It's a disease. I can't help it. And then, no. You're enabling them when you tell them that lie. I tell them it's got to be accountability. And here's the biggest thing. Let's be honest. Why do you use drugs? Well, I had a hard life. Stop right there. Let's start over again. Try with the truth.
I like
and,
it.
And they
now.
go,
it.
and then they go, well, it's because it feels good.
Yep.
I know that because when I drink, being buzzed feels great. I loved it, and I like being buzzed, and I thought that's why I drink. And people go, well, I drink to escape pain. Lie number 2 for me. Here's what happens. I don't know if this applies to you. If you were a drunk too, I never sat around and got sad and went, boy, I'm really sad. And what's going to cure? It's a 5th of vodka. But I never sat around and darkness moved in. I'm like, please give me vodka to get out of this mess. However, I would get vodka and then drink a lot of it, and then the darkness, I would go to the darkness. So the darkness never took me to the alcohol, but the alcohol often took me to the darkness.
That's a fact.
And so that's why I don't buy the disease model. I go, you do this because it's fun and you like it, period. And let's start there. And then let's start with accountability, because if you try anything else, it won't work. And then, the blue book that gets passed around from alcoholics, I got one in my office. That thing helped me tremendously. Because the philosophically speaking, it basically says, if you don't believe in God, this ain't gonna work.
Oh, it's biblically written. Most people don't realize it.
Well, they've changed it. The newer versions. They've made them a little political.
A little softer.
Oh, political
Higher
correctness.
power.
Yeah, higher power, and your higher you, and all this. They've taken out all the truth.
They've taken tons of James and 2 Corinthians and just re-put it in there, and they were unapologetic about doing it. And of course, no one fought with them because it was working.
Right.
And Dr. Bob, his wife was devout Christian, and she knew that was the answer long before him and Bill Wilson stopped, using. But they found that there's 2 things that have to take place: social connectivity and God. And they didn't take a harsh look at it. It was, I'll quote some of it because it was integral in my recovery. It's when we became crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we had to become willing to admit that God is everything or God is nothing. What's your choice going to be? It's exactly what that book says. It lays it out to you in no uncertain terms.
That's what C.S. Lewis said. Jesus Christ either is of no importance, or he is the most important thing ever. And he said one thing he is not is moderately important.
Right. Right. And a lot of people will buck at that. You can't use God to get me clean. I'm like, well, in fact, you can.
Yes, you can.
You need it.
You got a better chance.
Now, I actually had a question for you guys. When you're dealing with people who are addicted, is there more or less guilt on the part of the addicted person if it's something like opioids or something like getting addicted to painkillers because of an injury or something like that versus being in a crack house doing crack? I'm just putting it out there for a comparison.
I take this one all the time. Drug of choice doesn't matter. That's like us comparing what caliber gun we're going to put in our mouth to kill ourselves.
Yeah.
True.
Right? So that's the first thing now.
Because even if you do talk about the same drug, each person is...
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
I just didn't know, because that was the big thing for a family member, was the guilt that I've done all these things and I've gone against God and I've gone too far and he's never going to want me back because I did all these things. And it's like, is there more of that when it's the harder stuff?
I remember, well, a pastor... I had no salt. Am I too far gone? Pastor said, he was like, you need to read about David. Are you too far gone? He's like, let's talk about David for a little. There are so many stories throughout the Bible of people that are so far gone, and
they don't even think they can come back. They're like, I'm too far gone.
I tried to kill myself when I thought I was too far gone.
Yeah.
Right.
And I failed.
Yeah, I had the note, and I had the whole. It's like a commonplace thing. It's more prevalent than it is not, because most addicts have got to that point where, like, you know what? A lot of people, I hear people say all the time, well, that's a selfish thing to do. That's you don't, and you transfer pain to other people, and you're not really ending pain, and all that is absolutely true. And I try to tell them, you don't understand though. The person who is at the point where they're thinking about that is not thinking about that.
Right.
They're not thinking, oh, this is going to hurt people. They're thinking, I just want out.
Right.
And they're not sitting there going, well, is this person going to be hurt? Is that person going to be hurt? And sometimes if they do think that will stop them.
We're very self-centered.
But oh yeah. Oh yeah, as a species, I know. As a it's our obligation, it's our responsibility as human beings that if we endure anything deadly, that we warn the others of what's down the path.
Right.
Not only warn them, but we walk them down the path to get around the snake holes, get over the thicket, get over the rickety bridge. I mean, we're supposed to. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to do. It's not just with addiction. I mean, that's a Christ-like outlook. And if everyone did that, and it can be challenging with young people, because when I was, you know what that's like. I mean, you're young. You're like, I don't need you, you old fart. I know what I'm doing. And okay. I mean, the elderly are the biggest wasted resource of young people.
Oh yeah.
There's so much. So, and I'm not just trying to toot my own horn, man. I promise. I've had an immense respect for old people. Don't even try it. I have had immense respect for old people since I was a young person. I always have, and I still do. And I'd like to say it's the way I was raised, because I was, but there's just something inherently I value in them, and I wish
something has changed, though.
I know,
because coming up in the trucking industry, I looked to my elders for advice all the time.
Right.
And now I'm an old trucker, and the young guys don't want to hear from me at all. Mm-hmm. And I've even approached a couple of them in truck stops, like watching them have a hard time backing in. And I'd try to tell them, you could set your trailer up a little better by doing it. Just mind your business is what they tell me.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. Like, okay, they don't want my advice.
And it's frustrating. It's like, you're trying to help someone, and they I don't know if it's, I mean, I was the same way, but never like in a disrespectful manner. I would listen. I just didn't do it. Mm-hmm. Like they go, here's what you should do. I go, oh yeah, well, go on, and I'd leave them like it's all just like a big eraser in my brain.
Yeah.
And I would go out and do whatever.
Well, people's learning mechanisms are really simple. I can tell you till I'm blue in the face, don't put your hand on the stove.
Right.
It's going to burn you. But when you burn yourself, you learn a lot better. So it's us as people, not suffocating other people. We do have an obligation to say something. Mm-hmm. If you put your hand on the stove, it's going to burn. We also have an obligation when they do burn themselves is to help console it and say, am I wrong?
Right.
Do you trust me more now?
Right.
And God does that with us.
Mm-hmm.
God's told me 100 times, don't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. And I go and do it anyway. And I'm like, all right, you're going to have to help me out of this one.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's a parallel there. And I've gotten to a point, unless you ask for help, I'm not going to help you. And like that sounds rude and crude, but it's a good boundary.
No, it doesn't. My wife encounters people sometimes, and that will want help, and she'll go, "Oh, Drew, I talked to this person, and this, I don't know, relative or somebody wants help," and I go, "Okay." And sometimes she'll just, because we're used to talking about this stuff. Did you call this person? Have you spoken to this person? Blah blah blah. She'll say, "Oh, did you call?" I go, "No, I don't call them." I go, that's rule number one. I never call them. They got to call me, mm-hmm. and then that's how we start this journey, because it's like exactly what you said. You never try to teach a pig how to sing. It wastes your time and annoys the pig. So but the truth is, they have to want help, and then they have to let me know. I'm like, okay, and that's where you start. Because you can't. You just can't force it on people.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's funny?
And sometimes it works. It repels. Anyway, go ahead.
In the facility, like I have people, they'll come in and they'll start telling me what we should be doing at the facility, and I just look at them and go, I didn't know we sent you a cordial invite
right?
in the mail. And they look at you and I was like, you ever taken your car to a mechanic? Well, yeah. Did you tell them how to fix the car?
Right.
And they're like, but you don't know me. I was like, I know your disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they get all fucked up. I said, you need more time. and then they get frustrated with you, right? People are naturally going to reject the gospel. They're naturally going to reject what's good for them, regardless if it's...
Well, right. Plus, there's the guilt complex. They won't call it that.
How many times did we reject the gospel?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't reject the gospel. I just didn't live it out. I'm like, do you believe in Jesus? Yep. Jesus, your Savior? Yep. All right, give me a shot. That was my Grace, my poor wife. Man, she's been through. She has seen me. That's how I started the addiction recovery. Because years ago, she goes, she said, I don't know what to do to help you, and it was like breaking her heart. I said, ego,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I mean, I've done albums. I sign autographs. I get paid a lot of money. I go, why don't you worry about you a little more and a little less about me? And ego, and you don't hear how evil that stuff sounds until you look back on it. She goes, I can't help you, Drew, but I can't do this. And she goes, your problem is you go out into the world and people tell you you're great and you believe it. And she goes, how do I compete with that at home?
Right.
She goes, they don't see the Drew I see.
Right.
They don't see the guy killing himself at night with a bottle. They don't see the guy who walks outside with whiskey and fires a pistol into the woods at 1 a.m. They don't see the guy who does these things. I get to have that. And that just broke my heart. Like I was never abusive, like physically abusive or verbally, I never like what I just said to you, that was like the worst thing. Like I would never like car names or hit her or anything like that. I never went down those roads, and I never had a desire, thank God. But there was never that kind of stuff. And but I loved her so much that forcing her to watch me kill myself was like, it's like, oh, now I got to quit, and I can't. I mean, I know this was a long time ago, but that's what got me. God used her to get me to come to Him and actually start walking in obedience, and then serving, and then it started out by trying to find other people like me, because it was Mars was musicians, musicians and artists addiction recovery through salvation. It was big ego art people, because they think they're immune to this stuff. And I started thinking, when you go out into the world, that's a unique group of people. When I was in a group of people that everywhere I went, it was like, yeah, all right, rock and roll, and they'd do a shot, and I was always awesome. I mean, nobody ever said, oh, like Drew. And I asked her, I got clean. I called up the guy who was playing guitar with in the band. I said, dude, you guys knew I was an alcoholic? And he goes, yes. Of course, Drew, I mean, you can't hide that. Everybody knows that. And I go, well, why did you never say anything? How come you guys never said nothing to me? And he got real serious, and he looked at me, but there was a sadness in there, because we were at church. He goes, because nobody tells Drew Collins what to do.
That's right.
And I went, that's why. And he goes, that's why. And I was like, oh man, like cut me. And I'm like, man. And so I said, you didn't even try. He goes, we knew better. And I'm like, okay, well, here I am. So now I look at other people and I think, man, you're the same idiot I was. And it's like, you get the thing is, I wasn't higher up or better or doing great or doing fine. I was ignoring all the good stuff God put in my life. Well, like every addict does. Like I got grace, and there's so much. I could have meaningful relationships instead of superficial ones. Then I started not disliking being around people so much, because again, it wasn't the people themselves. It was just the annoyance of having to have small talk and engage. I just didn't want to be bothered with that stuff. And now all that, everything changed, and it's like I can see, and I see these, and so I would try to appeal to guys who were in a situation like I was. Now, of course, it's everyone, just like you guys do. You reach people, and you and I have been working with a guy who's doing outstanding. And that's the highlight of my week is text, because I talk to a lot of people who are going through some very bad stuff in life, and he's the highlight of my week every week. Hey, it's all good news.
It is.
It's I got to do this now, and I've been clean this long, and I'm like, man, I'm so glad to hear from you. In fact, we gotta get together to have a lunch date with him. So we'll talk about that later.
Well, I mean, he's a perfect example, right? Usually when people come together to help somebody, you have better results than trying to take it on by yourself.
Yeah.
Because people show love differently. We have a
That's true, man.
Yeah, and we never know how our love's going to bind to somebody else. And, some of us need it. We need it tough. I know in the end, like you're cut off from everything. You're not getting help from anywhere. You're either going to go find your help or you're going to stay in your hole.
All right.
But when a group of people came together, some could be tough, right up in my face. You're going to do this, or you're going to continue to suffer. And there were some people that were going to put the hand in the small of my back and go, "You need to do this." Mm-hmm. And for each of us, that's going to be different. And I think the angles, because I know conversations we both had with him and we had together, they were different angles, and he could take them in from both because he knew where it was coming from,
Yeah.
and he knew us, where we had come from, and never doubted, because there's a lot of people out there that will overindulge in what they've been involved in, and an addict spotted a mile away. They're very intuitive creatures, and when they know it's genuine and authentic, they become a lot more willing to follow simple direction to get on a path because they see it in action. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest testimony right there, is when someone says, I don't run around going, "Hey, you need some more Jesus in your life." They go, "What do you do?"
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest testimony. Let me explain a couple things to you. All right, what you're doing right now, you're on a good path. But if you don't do these things eventually, you're going to pay dire consequences. And that's why I am where I am.
There's nothing more expensive than regret.
That's a fact.
It is the most expensive thing in this life.
Well, I got to tell you, this is one of the most loving guys I've come across in the rooms, and
I don't even like him.
yeah, but
Jeff helped you out, right?
he helped me immensely. I was struggling with the higher power thing,
Yeah.
which I shouldn't have been, because I've been a Christian since, like I said, I was 29, and I've been on the journey even longer than that. Really, I mean. When I was a teenager, or I was about 10 when a purple bus used to come around and pick us up and take us to Sunday school at the Church of God. Mm-hmm. And I realized when I was like 10 years old, I wanted to be a preacher one day. That was my big thing, And so, I mean, it started way back then, the seed got planted. And, yeah, Jeff is a farmer of sorts. He planted some seeds in my life, and I'm grateful for that.
That's funny. You said you want to be a priest. I didn't plan on this. I never wanted to be a pastor. I'm like, when my life started to go this direction, my whole internal dialogue, like God being in the room with me, and I'm like, I'm not going to be a pastor. Are you kidding me? You know who you're talking to?
Right.
And I was laughing to myself, like, no, I'm not. I'll counsel people. Let's set the bar a little lower, a little more realistic. I'll help other people. And he's like, no. It's all or nothing. And all of it. And everything you do, because I've done stand-up comedy too. I mean, I'm on stage, I talk to people, I do art, I write music, I know a little bit about filming, know a lot about art because I went to art school. He's everything that you know about, you're giving to me, all of it. And I thought, okay, well, why not? I guess. And I was at Columbus College of Art and Design in class, and one day I got sick of the anti-God sensibilities that run rampant in art school. And there's a lot of Christians there, though, and they don't like it either. But they got no choice, because there ain't no good Christian art schools.
Right.
I mean, not like this one. It's like in the top 5 in the world. And so they got to go there. They have little groups and they meet, but they're in the minority. And the art teachers and just the anti-God sentiment. One day I'm like, you know what, I'm done. And I got up and I walked out and I drove to Ohio Christian University. And I said, I need to talk to an advisor. And I went in to talk to some guy. And he says, what's on your mind? And I said, I want to come to school here. And, you get the idea. This was an icy meeting. He's looking at me like I got lobsters crawling out of my ear. I go, I want to major in ministry. He goes, ministry? I go, yeah. He goes, that's a calling. I go, I know. He goes, I hope you're not looking for like make big money. I go, nope. And he goes, what made you come here? I go, I've done everything I wanted to do. I caught my limit. I go,
Caught my limit.
I go, God sent me here to do this, to take everything I'm good at and give it to him, and that's why I'm here. He said, really? I said, yeah, really. He goes, a lot of your credits won't transfer. I go, I know that. And he goes, this is what you want to do. I go, this is absolutely what I want to do. And he goes, oh, okay. It was like a dramatic, and the same guy worked with me, and
I had the
here I am.
I had the opposite. I went right into pastoral counseling. I started semester of my master's degree.
Pastoral counseling. You start counseling pastors?
Correct.
Okay.
And,
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I spent a semester in it, and Pastor Bailey, who was discipling me at the time, he was very encouraging about it.
Yeah,
and then
what they need, they're harder to get into counseling than drug addicts.
He says to me, he was like, if you're not called to do this, it's not going to work out. But I'm going to keep encouraging you to do it if you feel that you're calling. Well, I got about a semester into it, and I remember having this meeting over Isaiah chapter 6 and realizing that my mouth probably wasn't going to be anointed to do this.
Yeah.
And I had this long conversation. I'll never forget it. And he was like, hey, bud, this might not be the calling, And he was really straight up with me. And then I ended up in mental health and addiction counseling, and it was my forte. And it was exactly everything fell in line there, and that's how where you're at. But I took everything that that semester and a half that I took in pastoral counseling, and it has immensely grown me in my walk and my profession,
right.
and what I'm doing now. And I've always succeeded in academia, so that's the pathway that keeps going me there. And is it taking you in directions that you never know it's going to take you? Always.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know.
Well, doesn't everything? I mean, seriously, everything in life you get. I mean, that's the beauty of life. I mean, you can sit around like some of these people are going to say, "Oh, it's just my luck," or "It figures this would happen," or that. I think, man, all the awesome things that happened to me in my life also came out of the blue, nowhere. They were always standing around the corner. I know we say, oh, I didn't see this coming. So, it could be, lost your job, your car breaks down, something, all these bad. Yeah, they happen like that. But so does the good stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, the good stuff comes up. You're like, oh, this is so cool. But people don't appreciate those things as much. And I think I love that about life.
Amen.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we're heading around the bend here. What say you, Scott? You've done the least talking, I think. Well, Jackie, but she's not a former addict, but... I don't want to cut you off. You go next.
If you want to try, we can teach you.
I mean, geez. Was that an invitation?
Yeah.
The calling part, I like I said, when I was young, I want to be a pastor, but I've never felt called to be a pastor.
Have you? It was pretty dramatic. I tell people, I wish I could say I pursued this on my own, but God took me behind the woodshed. That's what happened.
Yes.
So that is what happened. That's exactly what happened.
That's what happened.
But I love it. My life is so much better because of it. Oh my goodness. So do you have people you mentor, or do you just stay close with? Though, like Jeff and me and people, that have the common
I try
thread.
to grab the guys that want to hear it, and I look at the guys that were like me, too, because when I came into rooms, I didn't want nothing to do with any of them guys.
Right.
And they were weird. To me, they were smiling and happy, and I wasn't. And
that happened. I'm sorry. You just triggered a thought for me. When I was trying to quit drinking, I went to. This is awful. This is really awful. I went to AA meetings. I thought, well, I'll do that, because I went to this place and it's called North Central Mental Health. It's in Ohio. I tried to quit drinking. Dude put a team of people on me, 4 people. He said to report to over the course of every day of the week. I'm like, no. And I went to the liquor store when I left, and I never went back there. So then I thought, you know what, I'll do this my own way, like everything else. I'm going to go to AA. So I go to AA, and what that did was the opposite. Because when I got there, it's Oreos and coffee and a church. It's always in a church somewhere.
Yeah.
And we were and everybody stand up, and they start talking. And they were telling stories about stuff they did. I thought, you people are freaks. I haven't done anything even remotely as bad as, and I'm in a band, and I've been around the country, and I haven't done nothing. You guys are just sick. And that affirmed me. I thought, I don't have a problem.
Right.
Well, that was
I
me.
got these are the people that have a problem.
Exactly.
And that empowered me to drink, and I left, and I actually felt better about myself. I'm like, you know what? I am not that far gone. And I was just... because I was a functioning alcoholic, just because I didn't do that. And I thought, boy, that backfired,
Man, that makes me feel terrible. I got there and I was like, dang, I fit right in.
See, well, it could have been the group of people, because that was in Columbus, Ohio, and that you got a lot of wackos to choose from. It's the 14th largest city in the country, so there's a lot of them.
I was in Orlando.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
And I couldn't relate to all these street level addicts that. I saw that.
No, you're good.
No,
I couldn't relate to these guys that talked about robbing, and I just couldn't do it. And plus, most people were younger than me. I was 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
What am I going to get from that 30-something-year-old guy? He ain't going to teach me
Ego,
nothing.
that's ego stuff.
And and I had a real hard time in the beginning, and I'm watching these guys now coming in the rooms acting just like I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I try to go to those guys and just nudge them a little bit, because I know I'm not going to be able to grab them and say, you're going to do this,
Yeah.
But if I can nudge them a little bit and mentor them a little bit if they allow me to. I didn't allow it in the beginning, and I kept using.
I know some people. The wall gets tore down with a small pickaxe.
Yeah.
Other people have a wrecking ball. It's just different for everybody. Your experiential learning is what's gonna. I mean, you use it now, like for this, like
I
this
got
conversation.
One guy right now is doing 5 years because he just wouldn't listen. And every time he would go to jail for a short bit because of drug court, they would put him in jail and let him back out. He'd come back and say, you got to change some things. You can't keep doing your will,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
keep doing what you've always
and
done.
so
You'll
now
keep getting what you've always got.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And now he's doing 5 to 7. So hopefully when he comes out, in a few years.
But
Yep.
he has to make the decision.
He has to. Right.
He has to want to change.
Thing is, he was a nice person.
Yeah.
I could see goodness in him.
There's a lot of people that are not. My best friend, one of my best friends died. He was an alcoholic. He drank himself to death, and I went to see him in the hospital. I worked with him every day, and he was he would help you move. He'd loan people money. Everyone loved him. He was just full of kindness, and everyone liked being around him. He had a magnetic personality, and he drank himself to death. And when he went into the hospital, I went to see him. He was yellow. He was. I'd never seen him because I worked with him all the time. It was the first time I'd seen him incoherent, and I walked in the hospital room. I go, "What's going on, buddy?" Because he'd been off work sick, and then he starts turning yellow, and his organs are failing, and this had been in the course of like a week and a half. And he goes, "I don't know where that wreath is. It was here." It's in this hospital. This is the middle of summer. I don't know what he's talking about. I go, what? He goes, there was a wreath they put somewhere. His mind is gone. He's talking about a wreath. He was looking at the sheets. I go, it's not there. And then I look over at his daughter was there, and she's like, and I go, and that's a hard pill to swallow. I never seen that before.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then they moved him over because it was a Riverside. They moved him in this called the Koback or how I forget. There's a place where they move people who are terminal and they don't have long, and they put him in there. And so it's like a really really nice hotel room with the hospice goes in, and they told the family, if you want to bring him vodka or gin, you can, because at this point it doesn't matter.
Right.
And that surprised me. I thought there'd be some code of ethics or some reason they couldn't do it, but it was imminent. And I remember I wasn't there, but they told me when the doctor came in the room that he said with a sense of anger, not irate, but the daughter and our other friend told me, he said that you could tell the doctor was agitated. He said he was reading what's wrong with him, what's killing him. He goes, this was self-inflicted. And he said it like that, because apparently this doctor had tried to tell him before,
Right.
he needs to stop. Because every time Bill would go, his name was Bill, would go to the doctor, we'd be like, how's your liver? How's your liver? He'd go back, it's fine. He said, it's fine. And we knew he was lying, and so this was probably the same doctor who's been telling him forever,
Yeah.
So I've gone too far around the corner. What say you on our closing statement now that we're...
If you need help, ask for help.
Absolutely.
If I get, and I tell my children this, no matter what, asking for help is the most empowering thing any human being can do.
Yeah.
From people who are doing things different, there is always help. I mean, very simplistic. There's always help.
Always. And you'll always run across somebody that won't give up on you, and somebody's going to be truthful. Jackie, what say you, the non-addict, as we close out?
But that's the same way with me. I'm known as the direct aunt. I'm everybody's honorary aunt. If you ask me a question, I don't care what it is, I will answer it truthfully. If it's about drugs and alcohol, if it's about sex, I don't know, whatever it is.
Anything controversial, difficult.
Controversial, you can come to me, and I'm gonna give you the honest, I'm not your mom answer. Whether it's positive or negative, I'm going to tell you the truth. And maybe that will open the door for someone who needs help. Just knowing that I'm going to give them the honest answer. I'm not going to say, oh, well, you went through these things and it's okay. And no, What are you doing with your life?
Jackie Brown, there she is,
That's
friend of
me.
the world. And we'll close that. If you come to me, tell me you got a problem, first thing out of my mouth is going to be, what's the matter with you? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
That's it. That wraps it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
I love you guys.
Love you, brother. That was a lot of fun.